Being 5:15, I call the finance personnel meeting to order. We stand for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I get a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Motion been made by Mike, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to discussion of the London first responders. Bernie?
I was just wondering if there's some way the city could help fund our first responders. I mean, everything they get comes out of their own pockets. And they run quite a few calls. Like this morning, they had 5 calls before noon. You know, and that's a lot of money out of their pocket to feed their family. And sometimes it takes 20 minutes for Gold Cross to get on a scene. And the only thing we got is first responders. And I feel as though if we don't do something, we're gonna lose what we have. And it's a hard enough time now getting people to do it. Just wondering what anybody's thoughts were on it.
So they have zero funding?
They have 0 funding. Everything they get, they buy themselves.
Interesting.
What kinds of things are they getting that they're purchasing themselves?
They got the supplies they use, they got radios, they got pagers.
Okay,
All that stuff is expensive.
yeah, it is.
Do you have an estimate or thought process of what an individual would spend per year?
Per year.
She's one of our first
We're with the
responders.
first responder group, I'm the director and the secretary. That's
I
hard
don't know
to
if we
say.
do like per person, we have like $3,000 a year in liability insurance, and we have,
Oh, really?
every time we buy an AED pad, it's like $94, and the batteries for the AEDs and bandages and stethoscopes and pulse oxes and our medications, all the epinephrine, I think some of the ones we use.
Yeah, like Benadryl, just everything, and everything has an expiration date, all that kind of stuff. So we're constantly refilling it if it's used or expired.
Oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
um,
And then our group is smaller, but even to get like more members, it costs more money to supply those members. So we're kind of stuck where we're at. We can't really make our group more established because we're just getting enough funds doing our own kind of fundraising and writing grants and stuff to fund what we have. So we can't really flourish because we don't have any extra.
To add one responder is probably about $1,000 by the time you buy all their equipment and bag and radio and all those different things.
Just to add a responder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody that funds your AED program?
No, everything, all the money that we get in is either raised through Fry or whatever, or through what I'm able to secure through grants.
Okay.
So I would say probably 95% of our money is filling out grant applications.
I asked that just because I know with other organizations and stuff that a lot of local hospitals and doctors and stuff like that sometimes sponsor the AED themselves.
A lot of the ones that I know that do that are like for the school or thing, like more like building type. I haven't heard anything for like a first responder.
I would personally like to see some kind of proposal on what your needs are, what your goals are, what you'd like to see moving forward, and what that's going to look like financially. Because I think that, in some way, shape, or form, we could do something, but we would really need to see what we're looking at.
Not only as a whole, but break it down as per responder.
Yeah.
When would you like that?
I would think next meeting.
Would it need to come to one of the committee meetings? Which committee meeting should we bring that to?
Personnel and finance, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we come to this meeting. If there's a contribution, it'd be the finance committee.
Okay.
Have you ever approached any of the hospitals like in Data Care and see if they would be interested in helping it anyway?
Not the hospital itself.
We do
but the
get a, we
corporation.
do often get a grant from them. Somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 usually a year. It just depends on the year. And a lot of that comes because we have so many of our responders work for Data Care. So,
There like a geographic area you guys cover, like a range?
yeah, let's see, Lebanon, Makwa, New London, Caledonia,
I believe so.
or Maple Creek.
And we meet up with their curriculum.
Yeah,
Have you requested any funding from those jurisdictions?
yes, they do give us a small stipend, depending on, again, what they have available. It might be $100 or something like that, but they do try to put in a little bit.
So I think, just to reiterate a little bit of what Belinda was saying, I think it would be a good idea if we saw all of that. Like, what do the expenditures look like? What do your revenues look like? So we have an idea of where you're currently getting your funding from, what the expenditures look like. Also, just to let you know, our current budget is set. So we, I don't, whatever the committee decides to do, but we have already set our 2023 budget. Whether they're gonna look inside of that budget is entirely up to the committee eventually, but if we could have a look of, how many first responders you have, what your expenditures look like, that would be great.
Is there any bridge between the fire department and you guys as well?
What do you mean by like?
Is funding
We,
help?
Funding wise, no.
no, I mean, they'll let us do some fundraisers at their within their fundraisers. This last one, they did a really good one for us with our 50-50 raffle, things like that, but we've been working on getting more of a relationship between the both, and we do some of our trainings with them and that, so.
I'd like to see it come back to.
Yeah.
Personal.
Abs-
finance myself.
Absolutely. And if you could like work with Judy on that at some point in time to go over the numbers and so that she's really good at letting us know what needs to be seen. So,
I guess I'd like to see a little bit of the history of, I always assumed if there was an emergency, the fire department was dispatched, but I didn't, that's what I assume. So it'd be nice to get a little bit of a back history of what you guys do or how you were formed or what relationship you have with the fire department as well. Because I just assumed that the fire department was dispatched for first responders.
mhm.
Along the same lines, do you have any statistical data, like in the last year, 2 years? How many times you're dispatched? I mean, it'd be a really good picture to see. I mean, are you dispatched 5 times a day?
Yeah, we
How many
can
times a
get
week?
all that and write it all up. We've been working with doing more, like data entry and stuff, but yeah, like a daily average. Yeah, we could come up with all that and.
Well, thank you. I believe the census that we'll see you back in a month.
Thank you guys for having us.
Idea that timeline, our next meeting will actually be March 1st. And we would need any of that information.
A week ahead of time.
That might be a pretty short, might be a pretty short window to get all of that information, but definitely I appreciate you guys coming, and
Yeah, letting us know about the need.
I know I didn't know a lot of, I didn't
I didn't
realize that
realize.
you guys were flying solo, other than some grants.
I agree. I thought you guys were state and county funded. I really did.
It's shocking.
Yeah, well, that's just it, like, not a lot of people know, so that's part of our plan is to get the word out and we are trying to do our best and trying to find the options to help make us even stronger for you guys and the community.
And I want to say we've been around since the early 80s.
Well, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the update on the invitation for state representatives on presentation. Chad?
So as all of you should know, we invited State Representative Peterson and State Senator Ballwigan for a meet and greet tomorrow. I did have a conversation with one of the schedulers for them. They are still planning on attending as of this time for tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's weather might, affect it, so we're gonna play it by ear. If they cannot attend due to the weather, I will call all of you, let you know that that's off. But as of now, we're still on. Game plan right now is to kind of talk about what's going on in New London, create a stronger relationship with our state representatives, so they know what's going on in our community. Talk about our current challenges with the state funding mechanisms and the tagline that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities has coined, that the funding mechanism for municipalities in the state of Wisconsin is broken. And my plan right now is to not promote that we're going to give them ideas how to solve it tomorrow night, but that our recommendation is that we support the consortium between the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the Towns Association, and the Wisconsin Counties Association, because they're doing the legwork to work with the state representatives on the actual bills and the process for coming up with any type of resolution. So I don't think we want to muddy the waters and give them a lot more data. Let's have, because I'm sure whatever ideas that they have, it's going to be up, down, inside out, left, right, before they actually come up with their the bill for any type of proposal to consider. So I think we just kind of say that we are in support of the consortium between those three state entities for solving any of these problems. I did also invite Scott Bleck from the school district, April Kapitsky from the chamber. April's going to just provide information on what the chamber's been doing. Scott's going to give a little presentation as well, because I thought, we're having them come in. Let's talk about our entire community. So I gave Scott the option to kind of, give a little bit of information about the school district. And I know Jason Bissett from New London Utilities takes opportunity to provide information because they do a lot of lobbying as well on utility type things. So Jay might say a couple of words about what the utility is doing well. So it's going to be a well-rounded facet of information from different organizations within the city. So, but as of now, we're still on, and I will let you know if Mother Nature has to postpone it on us. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chad. Financial Director's year-end reports. Judy?
All right, so I am tonight presenting the December 31st, 2022 year-end estimates. So what we've been doing, just to give you a little history or background, is we've been looking at our budgets both on the revenue expenditure side at the end of the year. And we decided as a committee a number of years ago that because our unassigned fund balance is quite healthy, that we should consider taking a look at those dollars if there are any dollars left at the end of the year to try to help out on the capital projects and equipment side, as that funding seems to be, well, as we know, and we'll go through again tomorrow night, it's more and more difficult for us to raise the revenue side for the capital equipment and projects. So I'm going to start with the year-end expenditures. And thank you, Chad. I think I will talk through, this is the only time I think that I wish I had like 3 screens so I could share 3 different spreadsheets with you at one time. Not that I know you want me to share them, but so this is the one I'm going to go through in detail with you. Sometimes a little bit less than others, depending on what the final remaining balance was. But one thing I want to point out before we start is even though on the general fund side, you can see there's $393,000 remaining in our expenditure side of our budget. So that's positive. That's a good thing. That it is only 4.4% of our budget. So we are at 96, is that a 6? 95.63%. So that's tight.
So even though we may think of $300,000 as a lot of money, when we're looking at the city budget, it is actually, less than 5% of our budget. So our budget is becoming tighter and tighter every year. And the only reason that we have this kind of money, and I'll be going through this one, category at a time, is a lot of times because we've had open positions. So I would anticipate as we continue to hopefully hold people in employment in the city that we're going to see that percentage less and less over time. So I'm going to leave this screen up, but then I'm going to go through this one. So if you're at home tonight and need some sleep, something to read while you want to go to sleep, this is where I explain each of these categories. So I'm going to leave this up while I explain the categories so that you have a visual of what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with the mayor and council. That line item had about $2,500 left in it. And the reason for that is just meetings. And then we have a category that's called flowers, cards, and gifts. Those are dollars, that the mayor has discretion and you have discretion to spend. Sometimes it has to do with bereavement, if an employee would lose, a parent, and we send flowers. And or somebody retires and they want to have a pizza party for him or something of that nature. So we had about $25 left in that category. Administration was just under, so we had $800 in that area. Insurance, we went through a time during COVID that our unemployment costs were up. So we are seeing those level off. So that's where the biggest savings was within our insurance category. Public Works, we had $102,000 left in Public Works. We had less snow, so we had less overtime. And then we also had an open position. So anytime you have an open position within a city, it not only saves, it's not really savings because everybody else is working to make up the difference, but the cash savings or money savings is both the salary, the fringes that go along with it. So it adds up pretty quickly when you have open positions. Our parks, building and grounds, and our Washington Center gym, again, another 120. We had temporary open positions within the parks. Our workers, our Washington Center gym seasonal wages were down. And then we had open positions again within our building and grounds. Recreation, we had a family to single insurance. Anytime you switch insurances around, and I'll be talking about this later, when we designate funds, when you go from a single to a family premium, you're talking almost $20,000, probably closer to $15,000. Anytime we go from a payout to a family, you're talking about $20,000. It's a very big swing within our budget. Cable 3, even though that's over, we're going to be using designated funds. You'll see me take those dollars out when we go through our designated or unassigned and assigned fund balances. The swimming pool, even though you see that our swimming pool was $20,000 over budget, this has been addressed. We have, I met with Jinder. I have a page and a half of explanation in my office. We had a big changeover at the pool last year. If you remember, we went from 2 full-time employees down to 1 full-time employee. And they were losing a lot of employees very quickly. So Jim made the decision to bring in or to hold tight of his seasoned staff to be able to train the new staff. So he had a lot of staff there all at one time. Another thing he did is open on Sundays. So it's a learning process for any department head who takes over a new position. So it's just a learning curve. Jim is quite aware of where things are at today. I'm sure this is going to be different going into 2023. He understands that he has, that there's constraints within his budget, and it was just out of his budget that he had to take the additional people. So I believe that what he did there was what he had to do in order to get through what he had when he started at his position. So the senior van and center, we had about 12,000. We actually had our senior director out for a while, and then she's been trying to utilize more volunteer staff. So there was some savings within that budget. Our police department also had change in staff. Very quickly, you can add up to 60,000. That's a pretty tight budget over there at the police department. So they're at 97.5 and a $60,000 savings. The fire department, again, they had openings within the fire department, change in staff, and then had some dollars left in their inspection area. Cemetery was just under $342. Our social services was over about $1,600. That was because of the fireworks, but we also took in the revenue on the other side. So even though it looks like an overage here, it wasn't at the end of the day when you take the expenditures against the revenues. Library museum also had both wages and that was staffing and their wage categories for both the library and the museum. Equipment replacement, even though it's over budget, we had planned on using designated funds. So you'll see that I moved that additional dollars in and out of our designated funds for equipment replacement. Look at how tight our equipment maintenance came in this year. We had $440 left. I was thrilled to see that though, because we did have, last year we went over budget by, I think about $10,000 or $20,000. But we had a new employee over there also. And he was starting to do more maintenance, items on the, not saying that he quit and not the saying that we told him not to, but things have just settled down a little bit over there. So he went in and did a lot of those jobs that he felt necessary to do. So debt service was just over a little bit. Community development, you will see that all of those funds will be designated back to the Community Development Committee. That's just a way for us to keep dollars within that committee. So if something that committee would like to do that is out of a TID district, outside of a TID district, I should say, they have some dollars to spend. Okay, and then capital projects came. It's more that some of these things are not being done because, you know, as we know, we have supply chain issues, and you will see the list of things that I had to carry forward from not only this year or 2022, but 2021. We're still working on trying to get through some of the capital projects and even the equipment that we have approved through committees. So with that being said, we do take out the capital side of the budget. I look at capital separate from the operating side of the budget. So when I take those out in the actual tab of here, that leaves $350,889 that we will call the over or the under spending of expenditures within the 2022 budget. Does anyone have any questions on any of that? Another thing I do want to point out is this is how we're required by the state statutes to approve our budget. So we approved a budget looking like this back in November of 2022. So this is what that budget would have, 2021, this is what that approval would have looked like. I can tell you, I don't know the last time every single line item came in under 100%. I usually have to, not in total, but I usually have to switch or move money from one category to the to another. And this year, I mean, even debt service at 99.72. So this is the first year you're not going to see an ordinance to change the actual budget. And I'm not kidding you, probably the first time I've ever seen that we've came in every single line item. So we'll see. Some of them are pretty tight. Again, I may be coming to you with this after audit if there's any changes within a line item, but at this time I don't expect that. So we'll see. Any questions on any of those? So even though, again, I'm gonna reiterate, it is pretty tight budget this year, but still allows a little bit of dollars for us to consider tonight, where we're gonna move them. Okay, then we'll move to the revenue side. This was much tighter than the expenditure side. And here's what that looked like. The tax equivalents came in, so the utility payment to us came in less than what I anticipated. We do an estimate of this, and depending on where tax rates come in, it can swing up and down $40,000. It's not uncommon for us to budget one number and it either be higher or lower by, $40,000, depending on how tax rates come in. Tax rates drop, the dollar amount goes down. Tax rate goes up, the dollar amount goes up. And this is all jurisdictions. So we saw a decrease in that tax equivalent. But fortunately, we picked up enough money in other categories that we actually came in 100 and a negative on a revenue side is actually a good thing. $119,000 more than we anticipated. And again, on this side, I take out the capital portion of the revenue. So there's $120,000 actually that we can consider again in this committee tonight on where we would like to spend those dollars. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue side? The license and permits is mostly construction. We did take in about $30,000 more in our inspection assessor revenue line items than anticipated. On the grants and donation side, our chief is very diligent on collecting on any OWI because the county comes out with grants. They're just not promised from year to year, so we don't budget for them.
Did any of the federal funding have any effect on this stuff here?
It did not. Actually, on the public charges for services, that $15,000, we received money from unemployment. Well, during COVID, that is in there. So that's why that $15,000, that's why it's so much under, but I should call it over budget. But that was COVID dollars that the federal had actually sent through the state and back to municipalities for some of the money that we had spent on unemployment insurance during COVID because it was so high. So that one, yes. State shared revenue, $6,000 less than what we anticipated. Sometimes they give you expenditure restraint dollars and then more people actually qualify for it than they anticipate. And then it drops a little bit depending on, again, how many people how many communities qualify. I was thrilled to see our interest actually at 93.5%. So we have not actually collected at that level. If it's interest rates, I know there's good and bad to interest rates, but on the revenue side, it's good. And I would anticipate at this time, hopefully collecting more than I budgeted in interest if interest rates continue at the rates that they are. So with that being said, does anyone have any questions on any of the revenues?
What are some of the special assessments?
Okay, so the reason that the special assessments are higher than we actually budgeted for is we have deferred assessments. And deferred assessments means that parcel can have assessments on it, and we don't collect on those assessments till the lot is sold. So we don't actually budget for them because we have no idea of that, if somebody's going to sell a lot or they're not going to sell a lot. So that's why sometimes you'll see them much greater than we anticipated. What is the subdivision out there? That's the one that comes.
Eastridge?
Eastridge. They had quite a few assessments on those properties out there, and we had no idea when or if they're gonna sell those. And we do have some farmland around too, where if they subdivide it, we will collect some deferred revenues. So we keep track of all that, and once the land is sold, then we'll collect.
So there was like utilities put in like in Eastridge and not until the lot was sold, do you collect that money.
Correct. So we are at 471,000. So taking into account the revenue of 123.51 and the expenditure savings of 350,889. We're at 471,240. What I would recommend is that we put the 22,000 that was in the economic savings within the economic development department to keep that within economic development. And then we have to put the boat launch dollars within designated funds. So we would move that, leaving 429,259. Now, one of the things I want to talk about too before we move forward in my recommendation is please know that when I do these, I am extremely conservative on the expenditure side and on the revenue side. I do know there are things that we have not taken in as a city. I am not taking every cent and every penny and putting it in here as an estimate. I know that at the end of the day, there's going to be more money flowing in an unassigned fund balance. We just don't know what that is yet. We are only in February, but I do know that there are dollars coming in. I'll give you an example of our insurance dividend from Civic that we received in the mail is $50,000. But I am not going to make this so tight that I have to come back to you and say, oh boy, we have to take money back from the capital projects budget because, you know, we had this huge expense that I didn't know was coming through and wasn't communicated to me. I want enough money so that enough, you know, flexibility within the budget that I know that if something like that happened, we would be okay. And then it allows for that flowing of dollars still into an unassigned fund balance. Just because remember, this committee at any time has the authority to spend that money. So let's say a piece of equipment breaks down and there's a reason that you need to go to those unassigned fund balance because to spend those dollars because something comes up. It is not the worst case scenario to be adding dollars to unassigned fund balance because you have the authority to spend it in any way that you want. But you also don't want to see it keep adding and keep saving dollars because taxpayers are paying these dollars in to be utilized. And if something would happen like that, where we would be adding something, I mean, I'm talking $50,000. And again, that's not a lot of money when you're talking a $7-8 million budget. But if something would happen with my estimates and we were $250,000, I'd definitely come back to committee and say, hey, we have some more dollars for capital. But I feel really confident at the end of the day in these estimates because I allow that flexibility in $50,000, $75,000 of being able to spend or take in dollars. So I just want you to know that before we move forward. So it would be my recommendation, and we have done this in the past, so that this is not the first time we have moved dollars from the savings within revenues and expenditures, that we move $300,000 into our capital fund to help with the purchase of equipment or projects within that schedule. The second recommendation is that we move $50,000 besides the $22,000 into that economic development fund. Again, allowing for that committee to have some dollars in case something comes up within economic development. Again, it doesn't mean that that's where it has to be spent, but it allows that committee to know that if somebody comes to them, they have the availability of dollars to do something.
And the 50,000 came from?
The sale of the longevity building. So it was an economic development project to start with. So that's where that dollar amount came from, was a $50,000 sale of that building. And then the third one is health insurance. I just brought up that during the expenditure side. We currently have a payout at the city of New London for employees who do not take health insurance. When we have employees hop on health insurance, because if there's a change in their situation, we can't stop them from coming on our health insurance plan. We have huge swings within what their budget looks like. So I'd like to have money put aside when that happens. In particular, when you're taking a look at one department over the other, we have some departments with more employees taking payouts than others. And I think it would be a good way, because you worry as a department head, well, you know, I only budget $3,800. And what if I get somebody that jumps on, what is my committee going to think? This is a place that we can go and we have some flexibility within that budget to say, well, it's going to be okay. We have some dollars set aside. The other reason I would like to do this is because we're going out to bid now for health insurance in October, or probably during the summer, so that we can get our budget numbers for the next year in November. So let's say we budgeted for $2,000 for family plan. And when we go out to bid, it's $2,200. We haven't budgeted for that in November and December. So this also gives us the flexibility to be able to get those numbers and know that we have the money set aside to pay it if those dollars come in larger than we thought. I'd also like to, moving forward into 2024, or probably in the 2023 budget, when we look at it next February, is anything we save within our fringe line item, I'm going to pull some of those dollars out and put it in this health insurance account. And then depending on the environment at the state, whether we can increase our budget because we don't have expenditure restraints, or we do have expenditure restraints, we can adjust it. So let's say expenditure restraint goes away and we're allowed to increase our budget in whatever capacity that we feel necessary. Then we won't have to worry so much about this and we'll just float it, take it out of designated and unassign it or put it somewhere else. But it just gives, it would give some comfort or some, the ability to use those dollars if needed in the budget cycle without having to change that budget or increase it, especially when we're looking at revenue restraints like we have today. So that would be my recommendation for the money that we have remaining within the 2022 budget. I guess I never did put a motion or anything. Probably should, huh?
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering, in the past, have we done it, one motion for all of these, or we haven't done individual motions for each
I
one?
would say one, unless someone in particular is something that somebody decides that, what I as a committee, you say, I don't think we want to do that, or I'd rather do this. So, but otherwise, yeah, probably a motion to approve that movement, those movement in a capital fund, economic development and health insurance for those dollar amounts.
You'd look for a recommendation to move $429,259 into capital funds and economic development and health insurance.
And then the remaining funds would flow into unassigned fund balance. So it's going to be an odd dollar amount.
I would make that recommendation.
Second. Motion been made by Bob, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I have a question about our unassigned fund balance. Maybe you're getting to it yet.
Yep.
Where are we at?
Yep.
Okay,
Next.
thank you.
Yep. So what's up next? Do you want to ask your question or do you want me to go?
Go through it. If
All
I
right.
still have a question, then I'll ask.
Sounds great. All right, let me just get a little list. So the first thing that I want to say is that when I sent out the packets, I did send this information out to all the department heads. This is the list I've been talking about, okay? So this is the list of things that we have already decided we're going to purchase or do in equipment or projects. Already been approved, but they haven't been done. We're waiting for equipment. So I sent this out to all the department heads and the chief caught me at the last second and said, hey, you forgot the $5,000 for my squad. So when we do approve I do have
You gave me that other document, Judy. You want me-
resolution.
You want me to bring that document up?
Yep. So when I ask for approval of the resolution, it will be, I'll have to ask that we approve it. There we go, with the extra $5,000 on it. So you'll see the assigned fund balance pop up by your original stuff by $5,000. So I just wanted to point that out to start with. So these are the assigned and unassigned fund balances, and I do have a resolution in here for approval. And the reason that we have to go through that is because I have to then adjust in my financial information for the auditors. They tie my information to the resolution that is approved at this committee. So we have to go through the approval process. So when they look at the number, it matches what you approved tonight, okay? So the new library reserve has not changed at all, although we keep it on the resolution list. Capital projects, we started out 22 with 770,000. We had revenue of 617. This comes right out of my financial statements. We expensed 1,57,000. Some of the bigger purchases, if you're looking at that, like, wow, a $225,000 wheel loader, $130,000 in maintenance, $352,000 in equipment, and $349,000 in projects. So once you break it down, it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we have the list of projects to be completed, which is $420,000, adding the $5,000 in. And then, so the year-end unassigned fund balance would be $757,000. Now, keep in mind, the minute we go into next year, our next meeting, I will take that 757,000 and subtract the 420. So we have to make sure that the bottom number is taking care of the top number. So we'll flip it around. We'll have the reserve up at 757, and we'll immediately add in our revenue expenditures, and then the projects will be subtracted and not added. So just to kind of think you through how that works. Okay, and then we have the cable TV. We talked about this. Normally you see money flowing into cable reserve, but they put half the money down on the update that's going to be going in this room. So probably in the next 2 years, you're going to see dollars come out of it. But that's the purpose of this. We put it aside so that we can do projects of this nature from time to time. That service reserve remained the same. Boat launch here is where the 19,000 was added in. We spent a little bit of money out of the Parks Department budget. The phone upgrade is finished. Well, I don't know if it's finished, but the money is there, gone. The trails account, the state gives us money every year. They tell us we have to use it in trails. I'll talk about this account later when we look at our capital side. Thinking about using maybe some of these monies for something we have on our capital list. So I'll talk about this designation later again. Here's the downtown facade economic development. Here's the dollars that I talked about flowing in there, the 22 plus the 50. And then took out the facade for the dollars that were spent this year. There's a nice healthy $135,000 within that fund for that committee to use at their discretion. Downtown revitalization. Chad had actually mentioned a project he's thinking about for that. We've been holding this money for a while. It came from First State Bank. There was an account open, and when Harry Radix left, he said, here, Judy, you take this money and you guys use it for revitalization along with the chamber. So we've been holding on to it since then. Here's our retirement reserve. We had 650, added 45,000. That is at a very healthy, also 690, almost $700,000. Technology budget, the only thing we took out of here is our council computers. We talked about not buying everything at once and buying those computers as needed. I know Missy put in another order for some computers, so that'll be coming out in there in 2023. Weather sirens, we don't have these anymore. They are going to be obsolete in the future, but Chief asked that we continue to add dollars in here, so that I think he was looking at like weather radios for everyone or some purpose. But I think I'm gonna get with him this year and see if we want to continue this or you know, some other thought processes. If he was here, I'd talk to him. Block cameras, that was all donated funds to our police department, so I had to put these in here in designated funds. Our revaluation reserve, I do have the city does have the money set aside already for our reval, so we won't have to think about that when that comes due. And all the rest of these are monies that came into the city that we have to use in the manner of which the donor asked us. So this is just keeping track of all of those things and where they need to be spent because the donor said, this is where I want those dollars spent. So, and then we have some dollars for the wellness fund. We do have a wellness committee here at the city, if you didn't know that. And we decided to give them some dollars to up and run. So every year that goes down a little bit, depending on how much money they spend at that committee. In that committee. The wheel tax, I will update you on the whole report, but we spent the rest of those dollars over on Avon, Nines and Lima Street. So we'll be starting fresh for 2023 and really haven't decided totally where we're going to, or in particular where those dollars will be spent in 2023. And I'm sure we'll get there. And again, here's unassigned fund balance at this point. I anticipate at least 3.168, 3,168,000. Our policy is to maintain 25,000 of our expenditure budget. So, and we also look at shared revenue. That's what the auditors like to look at to say, hey, if you wouldn't get that for a year, what would that look like? And they like to compare those two numbers. So it's just about $1 million over that. So we like to keep this healthy also because we will be bonding at the end of this year, just so you know. And when the bond council looks at our books, they like to see that we have a nice, healthy, unassigned fund balance just in case. Because obviously we're making them principal and interest payments throughout the year. So they want to make sure that that dollar amount is healthy and it affects your interest rate. So the healthier that is, the lesser interest you pay. And then Belinda, any questions on? Did I answer it?
You did. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'd like to make one comment. I always like to see the unassigned fund balance because we've been in there for a number of times for our snow blower. We had to purchase that at a certain time. There was one of our trucks. We had to purchase that at a specific time. And so it's nice when you leave enough in there that you can go and buy that stuff because we get a better price for it and everything.
Yep.
So I'd like to see you do that.
Writing what I talked about earlier because we have done it in the past. You know, many of you have been here long enough where you've seen us come in here in an emergency situation and say, hey, you know, how are we going to buy this? You can't be without, you know, snow plowing equipment. The stuff goes down. The hardest part today is, can you get it? So, but yeah, we have definitely been in here a couple times using unassigned fund balance when in an emergency because we need to. Any questions on that? Just so you know, the resolution will include, and we don't come to that until I'm finished with all my year-end reports, but will mimic exactly what you're looking at right here, all the dollar amounts. Yep. So that's what the resolution will look like, and everything on there is exactly what we just went through. All right, then I will move on to wheel tax. This one looks very much like I just talked about within the assigned and unassigned fund balance. So we took in a little bit less than we had anticipated, so 122,000. So we spent a little bit less because we had a little bit less on the Avon Lions and Lima. And then we spent it. So we have $0 left in there. And then I added Lions, Lima, and Lima to the list. We can repost that probably on Facebook and update that. And then we move on to our projects. I did update from last time the Lions, Lima, and Avon Street project. It did come in, it was at 1.7, at 1.4. I do have a couple more bills that have flowed through in between me putting this together. Just so you know, that will change slightly. It's not going to be a large change. But, you know, at 1.7, 1.5. And so our funding has changed. We are taking obviously the grant that we received at 434,000. You may notice from last month, that was at 371,000. I didn't add back in, we moved the CDGB or the bathrooms, the ADA bathrooms. We requested the state put all those dollars in the street and we moved those ADA bathrooms. It was just easier and cleaner. And then we didn't have to pay twice for engineering services. We all went through that discussion at one point. So I added those dollars in there. The 2020 bonding paid for 761,000, and then the wheel tax. So last month we had ARPA funding in there. We were able to shift our entire dollar amount of ARPA funding down. So that is great news because now we can utilize some of those dollars when we're going to downtown, which we're going to start up here pretty soon. So that is great news, and also drop the dollar amount for bonding here. It was at over 5 million and now we're at 4.7. I hope that continues, but I can't make any promises, but we hope our revenue sources continue to increase and we see those grant dollars coming in and flowing through. So that was positive. The next part of this is this bond, or the bond from 2020. I highlighted this. We have 3 projects left within this. And we know that library roof replacement, we just have not been able to get those shingles in. I think there is an alternative. They're looking at it. I have not had a chance to talk to Ann about where they're at with that. But I will get that update and let you know when I know. Do you know?
Robert's here, so I don't know. Got an update.
Do you have any idea?
Last, I talked with Dave from IRS angle, and he said that right now they're starting to produce a similar shingle like that. But it's more on a as-need basis, so you have to put your order in, and as soon as enough people find their order, they'll put them in production, kick those out to however many people need them and stop production. It's not something that they're going to keep like producing all the time. So he's going to let me know the contact information, and I'll work on finding out exactly when they're going to start production on that and what the timeline looks like.
Sounds good. Thanks, Robert.
I think that we wait any longer, we need to start calling it the museum roof replacement.
There you go. Yeah. Good point. So, and then, yeah, probably when we first got this, so that there was no donation, there was no, you know, all of that has come to fruition since this list was put together. The Newton Blackmore Trail, we spent about half of those dollars. We've been working diligently with the engineers, getting that money in from the state. I can tell you that we received 2 checks so far on our 80%. We spent almost $1 million on that project. And I have almost 900, little over 900,000 coming back in. So I have those scheduled. The bank is aware they're coming through. So I'm just waiting for those dollars to come back in. And then the parks projects that I talked about, the ADA projects where I added those dollars into the street program, they're sitting here and I know Ginger is working on that project. All right. Our state dollars have been spent. The next thing I want to go through or tie out is that this schedule is for those retirement payouts. So we have currently almost $700,000 sitting in designated funds for payouts, which means, can you make that a little bigger for me, Chad, please? Appreciate it. Which means we can cash fund this. Let's see, I gotta get down to the years. So we're cash funded the way to this year, so about 2029. And we'll be adding $45,000 if our budget process allows each year. So I really see that this is very healthy at this time, that we don't have any cash flow problems. If everybody left today who could take a payout, here's where we're at. So we're in really good shape with our payouts for employees. I share this with you every year to make sure that we're still making and, you know, putting enough dollars in that we don't have to increase it from year to year. And I think right now we're in great shape with the dollar amount that we're putting in.
So we can't allow employees to do a group lottery ticket purchase and then everybody retires at the same time when they win, because then it'd be a major
Only
payout.
so many people are actually, some of them won't get the money. So you have to be here.
Dennis said he'd give his back.
All right, and then next, I'm share with you, this is a benefit report. So every year, Missy and Jill put together this report. And what we do is we insert it in their W-2. So they not only know their salary, but then they know all the other benefits that the city pays for them, including health insurance. So on top, where did it go?
Here, I got it. Go back there.
Thank you. So not only is it the salary and everything in that, but then these are the additional compensation, just so they can see what that looks like. All right, so then I think we're ready for your motion on the resolution assigning fund balance.
Look for a resolution assigning the fund balance for the year ending 12/31/2022.
And Judy, you're making the point that the resolution
yes.
on the screen is different.
Right, so in my verbiage, I will say 757. I'm gonna highlight it within my verbiage because what I actually sent to you was 752. So I'll highlight that. So when you read it at committee, it'll
Yep.
say, okay. So that's the actual one that Chad has up there right now.
So moved.
Motion been made by Belinda, seconded by John. Appreciate. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Finance Director's report. Judy?
I can't find it, so I didn't do anything. No. All right. What do we have on there? Let's see, prepared and sent necessary paperwork to both counties for our January 15th tax settlement. So I have to send out checks because we do collection within our office, as you know, so that keeps us very busy. But then on the 15th, and then again, I will be doing another one now. I actually have to send checks out to Wapaka, Outagamie School District, and Bucks Tech. So we were extremely busy in our office in January and we do W-2s, 1099s, April and Joe. We have year-end statements we have to balance, the FICA, Medicare, state withholding, federal withholding, retirements. Even though you send it to them each month, we put it then in one big spreadsheet for the year and make sure what we sent in ties out to what the system says we should have sent in. So we take care of all of that. I spend a lot of time doing year-end adjustments for the estimates that I presented to you tonight. Also for the capital information that I will be presenting tonight. I talk about the wellness committee, did some of that. Prepared the statement of taxes. I distribute that to the jurisdictions. Again, but just a busy month with tax collection. Talk about the retirement reports. The budget's entered into the system. I'm also sit on the civic board. I participated in one of their meetings. I process the online tax payments, so I took care of that and balance all that. Updated, again, the projects for tonight. And then I'm continuing to work my way through the audit prep work. So that takes up a lion's share of my time between now and when they come at the end of March. So in between everything else, I'm trying to get through all of that, especially this year when we have 3 TID districts and Lyons, Lima. So I got to make sure all of those dollars are put into the proper funds when they get here. And it's a lot of communication back and forth with them about things so that I try to get it as close to what they want it to look like before they come in the door, so we can eliminate more than one day in the office. And we do a lot of things online, so back and forth between the two of us. They actually have a site where we send a lot of our stuff. And then we do a lot of our communication that way. So, and everyone in the office is involved in some way or another in that audit process. So that's it.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Just go back, Mayor caught good one. Belinda, did you make a motion or second for the resolution? You're not on the committee, sorry.
Sorry.
So you can't make a motion. We'll have to go back
Thank
and redo the
Thank you.
motion and second for the resolution.
That's me.
I
That was
need a
on me. I
motion
should
for
have got
the
that.
resolution to sign fund balance for the year ended 12/31/2022.
Make that motion. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Bob, seconded by John. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Like the next finance meeting will be Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. Anybody have any questions?
Yes. 2024 is a long way away, and I understand that. But I would like to ask the mayor, council, and the administration to consider, I just want to start a talking point. In 2024, the museum and library will be under 2 roofs. Up until now, they've been under the same roof. I'd like to just have some conversation on maybe separating the library and the museum into
Budget.
two separate budgets, because they're 2 separate buildings. So I just want to, give you time, maybe just to have a discussion about it. If it goes nowhere, that's fine. But I just want to,
They are line item budget separately, added together on our, on my reporting together.
Mhm.
And probably because they're always in the same building. I mean, if we want to see them separately, that's easy enough. Let's just say that. They will be statutorily in my, in the budget that we pass under with a whole bunch of other things, culture, recreation, all those other things. But I can definitely, in this area, they are in culture, recreation, and development. That will stay there. But if you go to my other one, I can definitely pull them apart. I mean, that's easy enough.
I just thought maybe we could have a discussion about pros and cons of separating the 2, since they will be in 2 separate buildings in their own.
I think it's easy enough just to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's not a big deal.
I think you're right on track. Get transparency.
And as a member of the Museum Expansion Committee, we may be looking at moving forward with separating those commissions, the library commission and the museum commission, separating them. But we're not quite there yet. For those of you who were at that meeting, you know, we're just starting the process. So that might be coming to the table, which would automatically do a separation.
I can actually do that already this year.
All right, now ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
And I'd like to call the capital projects meeting to order. Any changes to the agenda, Judy?
There is not.
Like for motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Right, first, Tim second, motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Hey, Judy, I guess you'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so just want you to kind of just, I guess, go through what process we as department heads have been, where we are to this point. So if you take a look at the schedule in front of you that Chad has up, the yellow are the ones that we would have, or the committee would have approved at that 12/7/2022 meeting. Okay, when we left that meeting, I said, well, let's see what happens when we close out the 2022 budget. See if there's any dollars within the expenditure revenue side we can add to this to help us either purchase equipment or complete another project. So we were able to add another $300,000 to this, putting the total to $800,000. So if you subtract what was spent at the 12/7/2022 meeting, the remainder is $321,000. So it really is a nice amount of money to take a second look at this list and move forward in equipment or projects. So then, once I had that number available to me, I did meet with the department heads who had, or I communicated with the department heads who continue or still had items on the list and said, you know, there's going to be more dollars that will be available for the capital projects. Probably more dollars than I would have anticipated. And then let them said, you know, if you want to talk to your committee or if you want to think to what items on the list you think you want to prioritize, because I'll be calling another meeting with the department heads after our staff meeting, probably, you know, the week before. So the department heads had some time to think about it. And we met as a group after our committee meeting and went through the list and made another look through of the equipment and projects and did a second prioritization of what you see before you tonight. And those items are actually highlighted in green. So another comment before we would start going through this is that we have calculated this out, just so you know, and if the committee did approve all of the items in green, we would still have some dollars left within this budget. But what I would like to open it up for tonight, and just so you know, Missy and Ginger are both with us too, but they're on Zoom. So if you have any questions, I would ask that you look at the current list, and I'll go through what we're looking at tonight, and then take a look at those that aren't highlighted. And if you have any question of the department heads, I would ask that you do that so we can move forward with otherwise looking through or approving through the items or not approving through the items that are highlighted in green. So the wood chipper is highlighted in green. We have the copy machine. Both the street sidewalk patching programs are highlighted. I don't think there's any question about those being approved tonight. One of the positives with that too is that we do have the money from this year. So there will be $50,000 or $100,000 in those programs available for 2023. The North Water Street ditch project, the fire department bathroom, riprap of shoreline along Berniger River Walk, fitness equipment at our pool, and this includes both a rower and a bike, the zoning ordinance rewrite, and the update on the 2016 museum master plan. So those are the items that was prioritized in that meeting. So there are some items in here that are not highlighted. These are funded. So just so when you're looking at the equipment for the fire department and the fire truck, we are looking at bonding for that fire truck. And then the equipment is funded through our maintenance. The yearly computers is also funded. So what's actually out on the equipment side is the Dodge pickup truck. And then they brought, Robert rethought through this here, and he's replacing it with a wastewater treatment plant truck. The other thing I want to point out is, as we went through this, we didn't try to leave any item outside of a thought process, like how, if we needed this, what would we think? How could we pay for it? Or what are we thinking for the future? So the replacement of the Caterpillar is a very, very large dollar amount item, and it lasts, as you can see, a very long time. So we're thinking maybe when we take a look, and this will all come to committee, but just to give you some thought processes of the meeting, that when we take a look at that state trust fund loan for the infrastructure downtown, for the development that's going down there, maybe at that time we would think about adding to that state trust fund and taking a look at that Caterpillar. Now, remember, this is just, we didn't want to not think about the purchase of this. And if it's a purchase all by itself within the capital list, it would almost absorb the whole entire capital list in one fell swoop. So just to try to think through these things in a out of the box type thought process. So down here too, with the senior center HVAC, also maybe a trust fund item. And then there's the vinyl siding at the pool. We thought maybe we could pull that out of the maintenance dollars when we do the pool shutdown, that there would be some dollars available there. The trail fund for the purchase of the land for Newton Blackwater Trail extension. I talked about that trail designated funds. That's what I'm talking about here. And then the Memorial Park bathrooms, that's being worked on with softball. So Ginger wanted to push that out because there's a lot of conversation going on where maybe we could do a 50-50 or something of that sort. So she just felt like she wanted to push that off and still talk about that. And then down here with economic development, that signage, I know that Chad is working on with the chamber, could possibly come out of the economic development fund, since that has a nice healthy balance. So yes, with that being said, I would open it up for any questions that any of you would have. Like I said, all the department heads should be here, or the department head would be able to answer any questions you have on anything that's not approved or looking at approving, anything on the list at this time.
I would have a question for Dave. 50,000 for the zoning ordinance rewrite. I was wondering if you could explain a little bit of that.
There was a recent one done by Cedar Fork that did our comprehensive plan. They were at around the 225,000 for the last one they just did. I believe ours is going to need a bigger rewrite probably than the one that they did. So we did kind of go high on the 50. I'm assuming it's going to come in between 30 and 35. But our zoning ordinance is kind of a mess, so it's kind of a priority to get that straightened around now that we've redone our comprehensive plan.
And Shawano recently did one too, and they were closer to the 50,000 when they did theirs. So I mean, we would actually put it out to proposals, so we would get several different proposals and options from consultants, but we wanted to keep it high enough in case they came in a little bit higher. Not that we put 25,000 and they all came in at 40,000, and now we got to come back to you again. So But this would be to hire a consultant to help us through that process, because it's a process by far. And it's something I think we need. I mean, if you come to the planning commission meetings, a lot of talk about zoning and, you know, what we're doing with things. So we're definitely in a need. Even our attorney, when Keith came on board, he started looking at our zoning code and just shook his head. So even an independent person coming in for the first time said, we need some major changes, need some major updates.
In the long run, I think it's gonna save money too, getting it done.
Then with the wood chipper, I was just wondering, would the wood chips be available for residents for sale, or would they be available just first come, first serve, or?
I would rather see it, first come, first serve. We have a containment area inside the yard, and they would be able to help themselves. I'd hate to have to try to monitor any type of sale event or anything. And then just the loading process, or, you know, if they come in with the trailer, say I want a yard of chips and they're selling them for $10 a yard.
And also to interject, we would be using those chips on some of our trail system as well.
Correct.
So we would be saving money on, we're right now purchasing wood chips for those trails.
Correct.
Be saving money.
Yep.
And hopefully, if you roll in, like my vision of what the yard site would be, and how it progresses, I hope to have most of this in-house, saving us for outsourcing other things. Like if we're taking down a full tree, a lot of the chipping with a 15-inch chipper can be done right on the street. Less travel time trying to pack that brush into the truck. And then you could save the bolts, and maybe get into a process where we could have an area that every fall we'd say and put that type of product out for bid, like other communities do with their old wood.
I guess I could keep going. Copier replacement, is that, so you guys buy your copiers or do you just lease them?
Missy?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get my computer. We do buy them out. We did look into a lease with a 5-year lease, and it came up to be more than what the cost of the copier would be if we purchased it right out.
How old is the one you have now?
It'll be 5 years this summer. And it is starting to give us some issues. So, or it has been giving us some issues.
I guess I got a question on that fire department bathroom. I mean, what, 49,000, what's going on there?
I can grab that one. So in the back, there is a fire department bathroom and locker room. It's a male locker room and bathroom. We have our first female firefighter on the force. So for equality purposes, we should be looking at providing a access point for, you know, females to the locker room. So this point would be to separate. If you've ever been back there, there's locker rooms, there's a bathroom, and then there's a shower room. So the thought process is take the shower room and the bathroom, make them into unisex shower bathroom, so that they can both be used. But this is an equality thing because we have our first female firefighter on the force.
Yep, makes sense. Thanks.
And at the same time, ADA accessible. Sorry.
Okay, just clarifies things nice. Thanks.
Anybody got any other questions?
I do. I was just waiting to see if everybody was gonna get all their questions in first. Museum, the $10,000. Could you elaborate a little bit of what that is going to look like?
Sure, so in 2016, the museum had a master plan done for what it would look like if the museum took over the entire building. At that time, the library was looking at the multi-use building down on the river site. And they were starting to get a lot of questions about, well, you know, there was a concern that the Carnegie Library and the museum building were going to be left empty. Or that the museum didn't have enough stuff to put in the whole building. So in order to kind of answer some of those questions, we had a master plan done that basically showed how we would function in the building. The reason that I was hoping to have an update done is, first of all, as part of that initial master plan, they also did a building condition report. And that has changed over the last many years. Some of the things we've addressed and taken care of. Other things have come to light through that collections assessment for preservation that we had done. So those things would need to be incorporated in an updated master plan. We also would be, in all likelihood, kind of changing some of the functions just based on use of the building and how we kind of see things going forward. When we had the initial master plan done, we really only had a couple of focus groups that went through a process to have this done. Now we have a museum expansion committee, which is an advisory committee to the library and museum board. So there's going to be a deeper discussion about how the museum will operate. And so this master plan is really kind of that foundational document that we can start to base some of these plans on. It also will help with looking at operation and capital budgeting so that we can know where we're going forward with fundraising and things like that. So that's why I was requesting that this be updated so that those types of questions and that timeline can start to be looked at more closely. But this would really kind of be that plan going forward. When we did the one in 2016, the architect that we worked with was actually able to take the project and phase it, and then also take it forward in time. So at that time, you know, they were able to give us some estimates on what it would cost to replace the HVAC system, things like that. But not only if, you know, let's say, you know, that we would be able to replace it next year. But then they also looked 5 years down the road and said, you know, here's what it might look like at that time. Again, obviously an estimate, because you never know what's going to happen. But it gives us a better idea of what some of those numbers might be starting to look like, so that as we are looking at running capital campaigns and fundraising, we'll have some sort of an idea of what our goal is to shoot for.
So you're gonna use that for your funding?
It actually will be used for not only fundraising, but just so that we have an idea of how we're going to utilize the building, where we're going to basically put stuff. And also it will help us to have a better understanding of, you know, what kind of systems we need to put in. So it really, like I said, it really is kind of that primary document that all information kind of flows into.
So that, I mean, it's what the future of the museum will be. It's not what's gonna happen in 2024. It's what's gonna happen over the next, 5, 7 years, 10 years out. So it's a document that will take us through that entire plan.
You said the master plan was done in 2016.
Yep.
7 years ago, you want to update it now, which
Yep.
makes sense. You have different plans and ideas. Do you see a future needing to update again in the future?
I don't really. I mean, there will be tweaks to it, but I don't think that there would be necessarily another update. But I can talk with the architect and kind of see what she says with that understanding that we're looking at something that will last hopefully for another 5 to 7 years. I think this update will be a little bit more lasting because we now have a better idea of not only what services the library is going to have, so that we aren't necessarily, we're able to say, okay, the library can do this, we don't necessarily need to. And then also we're going to have a much better understanding of just the recommendations from our assessors for upgrades and what's needed within the building itself and for the collection. We didn't have that in 2016. So I think that's going to make this master plan a much tighter document and a much more relevant document.
And you feel $10,000 is a good round number to get you where you need to be?
Yes, I do. I've talked to the architect who did the 2016 master plan, and she felt that she would be able to update it for not to exceed 10,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions on it?
The street patching program, how is that any more and above our normal maintenance? There's 25,000 for street patching program. I just wondering.
That's where we actually go out, define areas that need addressing. Of course, a lot of areas need addressing, but the worst of the worst. And we put bid specs together and go out for bid that a contractor comes in and does those sections versus us going to take a load of or 2 or 3 ton of hot mix and going around and patching holes during the summer. So this, both the concrete and the street patching program work like that. We define the really bad areas and run that through a bid process to get a contractor in and do it all at once. And hopefully this year we're able to get out early with that bid document. Having that extra rollover from 2022, I think we'll really get a lot more accomplished than if you're just throwing these little $25,000 at contractors. They usually look at the program or what they can cover for that, and the less you do, the more it is type of thing. So we're hoping we can cover a lot more ground this year with that program.
Any other questions? Want to go item by item, correct, Judy?
Robert, do you want to just touch base on the ditch project, what that is, so everybody knows?
Mr. Ritchie could speak for that one. Right down on North Water Street, there's duplexes that were built, I don't know how long ago, but when they were put in at quite a high elevation, and their whole yard slopes right to the roadway.
Right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
And you can probably, if you go to the road view or the little guy up there, you can see the standing water problems that exist as some there, some down further. The problem with that is not so much the standing water well, it is in the winter time because a lot of freezing happens and icing up. But during heavy rain events, the crown of the road cannot keep the water from going over crown because there's nowhere for all that water, the runoff from the front yards, the runoff from the road, and it goes over crown and goes into the people's yards that are on the south side of the road. So in order to alleviate that, there's enough room to throw in some culverts starting on the west end, working our way to the east. There's enough fall in that area. And that should alleviate the problem of not only all that standing water in. Standing water on asphalt always leads to failure sooner anyways, so that would alleviate that problem, the freeze thaw that we deal with all winter long, and in any heavy rain event, flooding of the neighbors to the south.
So you're actually gonna put a ditch in there and put a culvert by every driveway?
Correct. The ones to the east, the furthest most, those will still have to shoot. There's a drain to the east side of the furthest duplex, and we might be able to get away with nope, it's actually it's like a yard drain.
Was it?
Like one of those, yeah, I think it has a stake in it in that picture.
It's right in where
Right
that
there.
dead end sign is.
Yeah,
Right here?
a little bit more to the right above your arrow there. There you go. If you zoom in, you can kind of see that. So we're hoping we get away with a couple that we won't have to do. We still have to take some great shots in there, but all the other ones will have culverts.
50,000 that we're spending on a zoning ordinance and all this stuff, is that gonna stop them from being able to just build like that without putting their own culverts in, so we don't have to pay?
Any type of road opening, I could tell them that they could do that. But yes, any building permit that's filled out now, there's actual follow through on elevation, on grading, everything.
Oh, good, because I don't wanna keep spending money on stuff that people did in the past, that we're just gonna keep doing it.
Correct.
Especially like, just for an example, the Retzloff development, when he's gonna do doing a single family. That's why it was so important that we took his plans, we sent it to our engineers to review it, and Dave and Robert, how much back and forth did we have with our engineers making sure that the stormwater plan was something that we don't have to deal with issues in the future. So on the front end, yeah, we're spending money on engineering, but hopefully on the back end, we're not doing stuff like this.
And we plan on handling this. in-house,
Built a
so
lot of apartments and took all
definitely
away
cut
my carp spearing
some of the
area.
costs.
It used to be all flooded in there.
Back to that zoning ordinance, it's like last year we spent 50,000 on software, this year another 50,000. It's a lot of money adding up. I just wondering, are we good after this?
We've been working through some processes, but I think we're gonna be a lot closer when we get our zoning ordinance done.
Any other questions?
We just looking at the green highlighted items
Yep.
tonight,
I would chipper and then, yep,
because I don't know,
there's something else on there?
the copier bothers me, but I guess piece of equipment that's $18,000-$20,000 should.
I
should
can
last longer.
adjust to that. I mean, 5 years is a long time for a copier, and it does make, I buy mine outright too. It's a savings than leasing them, because if you don't make so many copies, then you're paying way more, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Missy, you had also spoke that your intent is not to purchase it right away, but also
Right.
look at when it's available.
Right, and I talked to the sales rep and he said it's actually about 3 to 6 months out right now. If I were to put an order in today, it would be 3 to 6 months out before we could even get it in. So, and the last time that we purchased a copier, we had planned on it the next year onto the capital projects list. And it pretty much had almost died in the middle of the year and we had to scramble to get the money to pay it for it in the mid-year. So we just kind of want to prevent that from happening again.
I just don't have the concept of.
I
I'd like to see guarantees.
I tried to
all
lease
the
one
different
at one
matches.
time and it was a nightmare. You're better off buying it outright. And then you know, about 5 years is about what you're gonna get out of electronics nowadays.
But I mean, do we keep track of how many copies we make and then hold the sales rep accountable if it doesn't hold out? I mean, because we don't get packets anymore. I realize this organization is big enough, but
But it does a lot more than just make copies. We scan things in,
Scans.
yeah.
We scan, we email.
Yeah. And then I think the Park and Rec puts a lot of their packets together on that.
Yep, there's plenty of publications. We saved a lot of paper when we started using the laptops for the council meetings. I mean, those council
We were
packets, you
just
guys,
talking about that.
there was a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot of copies that are made for different types of things and taxes and, you know.
I get it. I mean, a vehicle, you get to know how many miles you put on and you know when the oil change and all that. It just blows my mind that copiers only last that long.
How long does yours last at home?
Right?
I'm getting
The
mine
one
last
that we
a year.
got in, the one that we have in our office, I think we've had since 2011 and we make a lot of copies.
Not the problem. Problem is I can replace the one at home for $20 at Walmart.
I mean, I figure
Is that how they are?
5 to 7 years on a home copier is lucky.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I don't know, why you.
We-
apply for the loan in a couple of years now, too.
Just wait when you see the bill for the toner. 350.
Actually, the toner is in the price because we pay for a monthly click charge. It's every time we make a copy, we get charged per, it's called a click. So we don't pay a monthly fee. We don't pay for any maintenance upgrades or maintenance. When they come out to fix anything, we don't pay for any of that. We don't pay for the toner. So that's all included in the click charge.
I guess now I'm kind of concerned because that's why I thought, you know, you weren't having a monthly fee and you were buying it outright, but
That's the maintenance fee too, you know, the whole maintenance charge. And that's the state price. So the state
Yes.
out of bid price. And we piggyback off the state bid price for all that.
Right. And we may be able to, I'll check with the rep yet to see about if there is a trade-in value that maybe we haven't discussed, or if we can go on to Wisconsin Surplus and sell it yet too. But the one that we currently have.
Anybody else? I just want to thank all the people that put their time into researching this stuff, like the copier and Dave with his stuff and the street guys and everything. I mean, I just like to show appreciation of the time that they put in to get these prices. That's sad. Okay, I've looked, we're ready to go, Judy?
I'm ready.
I look for a motion to approve the wood chipper used for $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
Dave made the first. Second. All, you got it, Judy?
I got Dorsey first, who was second? Robert, okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Hi.
Hey, motion approved. Moving along, we're going on to the copier for the city hall for a price of $18,000. I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
John? Dennis made the motion. Okay.
Got it.
Street patching program.
Call the votes.
Okay, sorry. All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carried. I look for a motion to approve the street patching program for 25,000.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Don made the motion, Dennis second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Sidewalk patching program for 25,000. For motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. North Water Street Ditch Project for 15,000. I look for the motion.
So move.
Second.
Got it, Judy? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. For the fire department bathroom for $49,739. I look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Look for the Rip Rap shoreline along Verniger Riverwalk for $38,352. I look for a motion.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Look for fitness room cardio equipment replacement, rower and bike for $3,800. I look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I look for the zoning ordinance rewrite for a price of 50,000. I look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
9 with 1 abstention, 1 not nay. Got it, Judy?
Yep.
And I look for an update for the 2016 museum master plan of $10,000.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All I have, Judy, you have anything? Meeting date?
So with those approvals, you can see the remaining balance within the capital program is 30, is that 36, 35? Sorry.
36,699.
Thank you. So if something were to come up, we would have some dollars still remaining within this budget if needed. And with that being said, we would not hold another meeting unless needed. I would assume in a committee meeting, something would come forward and then we would hold a meeting again if needed. But at this time, we will not.
Okay.
I'd like to say thank you to all staff and department heads that were involved in this. I don't know if most of you know, but countless hours go into this and countless meetings go into it. And they do a superb job at and diligence with the tax dollars. Thank you for keeping our city moving forward and on task.
Thank you, Mayor.
I look for a motion to adjourn.
So
Whatever
moved.
happened to those, for the bids on floor up at in the fire station?
That came to council what, last week or the week or last month or the month before, last month?
Oh, I didn't.
Yep, so the contractor just signed the contract, I don't know, about a week ago. So now the contractor and Mark Wilfer can start talking about schedules.
Cause I know he said something the other night at one of our meetings that he ain't heard nothing.
He stopped in a couple of days ago.
I got it.
Tim made a motion.
Barrington
Barrington.
Oh,
first.
he made.
I'll
Tim
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or adjourned?